Hello and welcome back to another episode of a Cozy Christmas Podcast. My name is Art, and depending on when this comes out, there should be just about 100 days left until Christmas. So I am excited. We finally hit the 100-day mark. I'll probably be listening to some Christmas music today to celebrate. Before you know it, the Christmas season will be upon us, and I would really love this year to hear from you folks, those who are listened and have been listeners for a while. Send me an email about how your Christmas has gone this last year. What are some of your favorite Christmas traditions? I'm especially interested this year in trying out some of your favorite recipes. I'm thinking especially dessert kind of Christmas recipes. That's my favorite type of food to make. But if you had like a side dish or a main dish even, that just is Christmas to you, let me know. All right, so I look forward to hearing from you folks. It's mid-September, and I know I will be looking forward to getting into the colder months and just a break from the heat that we've had. Even into early September, it did go down a little bit, but then it went back up, and it's hot and humid, and it just is not fall weather. We've got pumpkins to pick and apple crisp to eat. Let's get with the cold weather. All right, with that, let me introduce our guest. My guest today, her name is Alexandra Walker. We're going to be talking about Christmas when it's hard. And for many of us, Christmas is the best day of the year, but we, of course, acknowledge that it's not always that case for everyone. She's written a book called Reclaiming Christmas, where she chronicles her journey through a very rough time when she was younger and how it kind of ruined the joy of Christmas for her until as she became an adult and was working through some of those issues that she decided she was going to reclaim the joy of Christmas. Our conversation itself doesn't go too far into the graphic. I do want to remember that this is the Cozy Christmas Podcast, and I do want to maintain that vibe a little bit, but we do touch on hard times, and I just wanted you guys to be aware of that. I enjoyed talking with Alexandra so much. She just radiates joy for the season and for life, and I think you will love listening to her. In our conversation, we do talk about Christmas traditions and what are some of the fun things we enjoy about Christmas and favorite songs and music and events we do. So it's not all going to be a serious conversation, but just to give you guys a heads up on that. So let's head up to the interview loft and see what Alexandra has to share with us today. It's a difficult truth that sometimes Christmas is hard. Those of you who have listened to my show throughout the summer, you know that I lost my dad this past spring rather suddenly. And as Christmas is coming closer, I know that this year we will really be feeling his loss during Christmas time. He was a man who made Christmas very special for us. And even if this Christmases we couldn't spend together, he always sent me a Christmas card or called me on the phone or send me a text message just wishing me a Merry Christmas and asking how the kids are doing, how we're celebrating, all those fun things. He really enjoyed this time of year. And I know that I am fortunate in that, and that's not everybody's story. So I am very thankful for those memories I have of him. But my guest today has a story a little bit like that. Her name is Alexandra Walker, and she's written a book called Reclaiming Christmas. And this is a book that I've read and found to be personally very helpful. She actually connected with me before any of this with my dad happened, and I read her book and enjoyed it. And then before my dad passed, I just realized this was a really valuable resource to have. So I invited Alexandra on today to talk about her story a little bit and to offer some helpful hints and tips to us on how we can celebrate the season even when it's hard or difficult. So Alexandra, welcome to the Cozy Christmas Podcast.
Hi there, Art. It's so lovely to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, well, thank you. Just for sharing your book and for writing it. It's it's not a topic we necessarily talk about a lot on a podcast called A Cozy Christmas, but it's one that impacts everyone. And what I love about your book is that it handles such a difficult subject with a lot of grace and understanding. And so I've really, really truly enjoyed reading it and learning from it. So I'm excited to have you on to talk a bit about that and your story.
Oh, thank you so much. So, I suppose just a little introduction. I, until recently, was working in London in various jobs in the civil service and in charities and that kind of thing. But I've gone through a big life transition over the last few years and now live in the Northwest Highlands of Scotland. And I'm a life coach, and I've set up a business to support people, which is called Damsel Not in Distress. So that is my new project in life. And so for me, I had a rather different story to yours. So I absolutely love Christmas. Christmas is one of my favorite times of year, and there are so many beautiful things about it. But it got quite tarnished for me. So I had a really, really difficult relationship with my father. And, because you get flung together as families at Christmas time, which is obviously a lovely thing for many people, but in our case, it meant that the problematic stuff happened more at Christmas time than it did at other times of year. So it became this kind of microcosm of trouble, actually. And so the thing that I had once loved became something that was very difficult for me. And, all the difficult memories would come back every year. And eventually, so if we go to 2021, I didn't celebrate Christmas at all. I literally just I sat it out with my husband for the year. We didn't have any decorations, we didn't have any presents, we didn't see family, no nice food, just nothing. And I just couldn't do it. The next year, I said to my husband, I don't want this though. I don't want to lose Christmas for the rest of my life. This doesn't feel right. Yes, difficult things have happened, but that's not what I want for my future. So I basically embarked on an active experiment to reclaim Christmas for myself. And that was what I wrote about in the book. So it was basically a real time writing of what I was doing. And I was just trying lots of different creative ways to reclaim Christmas and to deal with some of the complexities that I was going to come up against, but also enjoy the beauty and kind of recapture the beauty again. So that's really what the book is all about.
With Christmas, it so much of it is centered around things being either perfect or, bright and cheerful. It really is a celebration of light and darkness kind of deal. It does almost not seem right, when Christmas comes around and you're just not feeling it, or something has happened where it seems like it's been taken from you. And I love your whole approach that even though this difficulty has been there, I'm going to reclaim a part of my life that I greatly enjoyed and make it special again. I think that's a very powerful message.
Thank you. And I think there are three reasons why Christmas can be challenging.
Hmm.
So the first one is we're supposed to be happy. And if we're just not happy, people look at us a bit weird, or they might even just exclude us altogether because we're just not fitting in with the vibe, right? So that's
Hmm.
problem number one. Problem number two is that there's such a focus on family. And I'm not saying that's bad, but for those of us who have families where there is complication of some kind or where we've had a loss or something like that, that creates issues as well. And then finally, we've got lots of rituals and traditions at Christmas time, which again are beautiful things. But if we've got issues from the past, those memories are going to get triggered by the rituals. So I just think that it's a bit of a perfect storm of different things that can make it challenging. And, you know, my story is just one example. There's yours where you've lost someone special. There can be other difficult things like money issues or an ongoing difficult family relationship. You might have to meet that difficult person in your family who just makes you feel bad and says nasty things to you or whatever it is. There are different things which can come up. If you got divorced and suddenly your whole life looks different,
Hmm.
because the whole family makeup is different. So there are a bunch of different reasons why Christmas can be challenging for people.
Now, and this is something I've said, and I'd love to get your thought on it. And I try to encourage people to to be easy on themselves when they say, you know what, I just don't feel like being happy this Christmas. I kind of have often would say either to myself or to them that, you know what, that's okay. Like you said, it's that expectation that can sometimes cause trouble. And I'm actually reminded of my dad when my stepmom passed away. He loved her so dearly and was just by her side through a lot of very serious physical sicknesses and illnesses she had. And he wanted to take just a couple of years after that. He said, you know, I don't really want any guests coming. He said, I'm just going to keep Christmas simple. He said, I'm okay. You know, I'm not depressed. I'm not any of that. But I just want to stay home and watch our favorite Christmas movies and just remember her. We really tried hard to respect that, even though it seemed like it was so unnatural. It's like, but Dad, it's Christmas, you know, but he just wanted a little bit of time, you know, just to reflect. And so I try to encourage people, you know, to realize, okay, if you're not happy right now, that's okay. Anyway, I'd like to know your thoughts on that.
But I completely agree with that. And there's this whole area of just accepting what is and not trying to fight it.
Hmm.
So I think that's really important. And also just having counterbalancing that a bit, also having hope and a bit of ambition as well. And I think it's just working out where we are in our journey. So for me, back in 2021, it was right for me to sit Christmas out. That was the
Mm-hmm.
right thing for me to do. It may not have been totally fun, but it was the right thing for me in that moment. I think one of the things I talk about is if we want to reclaim Christmas for ourselves, there's something about having maybe a slightly longer term vision and then a goal for this year. And, you know, for example, if you've lost someone special in your life, it might not be realistic that your goal for this year is to have the most flamboyant, exciting Christmas ever. It might be a more reflective, quiet time. You know, it might have a bit of sadness in it, but that's okay. That's honoring the person that we've loved who isn't there anymore. So, you know, the goal for this year might be slightly more contained, but with the aim in the longer term of getting back to that more exciting stuff again. If did that make sense? Just
Mm-hmm.
yeah, a bit of reflection of where we are in our journey.
Yeah, it's like, you know, I am not going to dishonor their memory by having fun. You know, I mean, my dad would be like, no, don't sit around feeling sorry about me. You know, I'm in a better place. You know, he'd say, go and have fun, spend time with your family, celebrate Christmas. But there's certainly nothing wrong with, I think, going the other way and just saying, I'm just going to take that time to reflect, whether it's self-reflection or remembering loved ones or, you know, trying to get over those difficult situations. I think in the long run, it's healthy for us to do that.
Absolutely.
I know we're kind of already dancing around that a bit, but for somebody who's maybe out there thinking Christmas is going to be real hard, what can I do to you know, overcome that or to help that?
Yeah. So obviously, I have some thoughts about this, having done it myself. I would say a first step is to know what your big why is. Like, why do you care about Christmas in the first place? There are some people who just don't like Christmas very much. I'm sure none of your listeners are in that category because they're subscribed to your podcast. But, you
Right.
know, if you're just not someone that loves Christmas, then maybe it's just not a big deal in the first place. But if you do, like me, my big why was, well, there are things about Christmas that I absolutely adore and I want to get back to them. And I think the real value of that, when we get into our emotional brain and, you know, something makes us upset or angry or whatever, having that big why in our heads can just bring us back to what we really care about. So I think just knowing, why do I want to do this, really matters to begin with. And and then I think it's just about being quite intentional about the process, because, you know, we're quite habitual human beings. You know, we
Hmm.
develop habits because they conserve us energy, and there's all sorts of reasons why we have habits, and they're brilliant things. I mean, we can drive cars and brush our teeth without thinking about it, and it's all these things we do.
Right.
But I think when it comes to something like this, it's quite important to be more intentional. How am I going to approach this? You know, for me, Christmas absolutely begins on December the 1st. Obviously Advent, but you know, the
Hmm.
season begins on December the 1st, if not slightly earlier, if I can get away with it. Um, so how am I going to spend that time and just have a bit of time thinking about it? And then I'm a really logical person, right? I've got a doctorate in maths, which freaks people out. And I used to approach everything with logic. I can solve everything that way. What I've discovered, and what, as you know, what the book is about, is really I need a broader perspective. I need a broader range of tools to help me do this. So, yes, there are some things I can do with my mind, but it's also about my emotions and my body and my spirit, and just finding different tools and techniques that worked for me to help me to move through some of the more challenging stuff so that I could also enjoy things as well.
I like that approach and how you can really narrow it down to those, well, those questions. I mean, we're taught in grammar school, like the why, how, what. I had to chuckle though when you said, Christmas begins for you on December 1st. I'm sure I have some listeners who say, "Oh, Christmas begins for me on January 1st." Here, we're gonna go all year, but yeah, that's really is that kickoff time of year for sure. Anyway, getting back to the topic, as you've implemented some of this in your own life, have you seen healing and perhaps that a new joy or that same old joy you had coming at Christmas time?
Oh, I really, really have. And just to give everyone a spoiler, the book has a happy ending. So
Yeah.
I wouldn't have put it out there if it didn't. But let me just give you some examples of some of the things I did. So
Hmm.
around my mind, so I'm quite a glass half empty kind of gal. I kind of wish I was more optimistic sometimes, but the world and my experiences have made me a bit negative sometimes.
Hmm.
So I used affirmations that Christmas to really help me focus on what I was trying to do. Now, affirmations, I don't know, I can find them overly positive the way people do them. But for me, it was about something that it's a positive statement, basically, to get your brain focusing on something positive, but mine were quite grounded in reality. So, for example, I had one which was the magic is built one step at a time. I know what to do today to reclaim Christmas. And these were statements that I would say every morning just as part of my routine. And that one was basically to say, I don't have to achieve it all today. I'm just doing the next step in the process and it's going to build up into a beautiful thing over time. So it was partly to take the stress off me and partly just to remind myself that, if I listen to my intuition, I know what to do. So don't stress. And then another one, so fear has been a huge part of my life, fear and anxiety of various kinds. So it wouldn't have worked for me just to stand there every morning and say, I'm not afraid of anything, or, I act despite the fear or whatever. That was a bit too much. So my one was, I'm less anxious over time and I step out despite fear so it doesn't control my destiny. And the idea behind that was, well, I was recognizing that I was on a trajectory of being less anxious. And also that if I was courageous enough to do something anyway, I wasn't letting fear have the final word. So it was finding statements that were true to me and they really kept me focused and stopped me freaking out. So that was just one example on the mind. Emotions is a massive one, right? So if you've got either an ongoing difficult situation or something from the past which is coming to kind of cast a bit of a shadow, you're going to have all sorts of emotions flying around and they're going to be heightened at Christmas time because of those rituals, memories, all sorts of things. I think it's really important to express those more difficult emotions. So whether it's real sadness or whether it's anger or resentment, there can be all sorts of things. Now, obviously, we don't want to go harming anyone or doing anything destructive with those feelings. And it might be that a lot of people can't cope with sadness, for example, at that time of year. But we might find that friend who can sit with us and let us just let the sadness out, or I don't know, punch a cushion, or like I did one day, I got my beautiful journal and I just scribbled all over it. And I felt bad on one level, but I just had to let out the angst. So I think there's something about that. I think it's okay to have a down day during Christmas. And I used to get all stressed. I'd be like, oh no, I feel down. Well, I've ruined it all now. That's it. Well, I just learned in that experiment to say, okay, I think I felt down on something like the 18th of December, and I was really worried it was just going to, spoil the whole thing. But actually, I managed to have a shallower dip and recover more quickly just by saying to myself, it's okay. I can just sit here and just watch a movie, just chill out, not stress about it, and it'll end. All things pass, you know. So that was an important one for me as well. And I think also really absorbing the positive. We have this habit of just skating over the positive stuff, and if one just takes the effort to just really drink in the lovely stuff. So emotions are massive, and just to go through the other couple as well. So on the body, we know now that our stress and our difficult experiences get stored in our body as well as our minds, and you know, it's not just enough to deal with the mind and everything. So things like calming breathing techniques, you know, you don't have to do anything fancy, but just a bit of calm deep breathing does massive things for one's mental health. Them walking out in nature maybe. And one thing that was brilliant for me during that experiment was dancing, and I don't mean anything, you know, particularly fancy or, you know, pre-planned steps or anything, but I just enjoyed boogieing to some fun Christmas music, and it really liberated me. And finally, obviously, spirit. Christmas is obviously a time for Christians of faith, but whatever our beliefs, you know, it is a special time of year. And so I think just not ignoring that side of us as human beings. And I found myself hilariously getting really obsessed with candles during my experiment that year. And there was just something about the light. And I'd never liked them before, but there was something about it that was just really healing for me. So there you go, just a bit of a snapshot of some of the stuff that I did.
Yeah, I love candles. In fact, I have several Christmas candles that I'll burn throughout the year, and sometimes it's really almost like aromatherapy. You know, I just need to smell pine and be reminded of Christmas, and it's helpful. I don't know, maybe it's just a little boost of serotonin or whatever it is in our brains that make us happy, you know. But I mean, it's a simple thing to do, but it's I think it's worth taking those moments, you know, to and I'm one to not want to keep Christmas in just, you know, 1 or 2 weeks out of the year. Obviously, I do a year-round Christmas podcast, so that would be odd. But you know, I don't think there's anything wrong with, hey, this makes me really happy, and I need a little bit of it today to help me get through the day. I think those are good practical things that help us get through. Yeah.
And I agree with all of that. And I'm just such an advocate for finding that mix of things which help you as an individual, because we're all different. And, you know, there are some basic things that I think can be helpful for everyone. You know, like breathing is a really interesting example. Basically, we all breathe quite badly. We just learn to breathe quite shallow and quite fast. And it's not really very good for us. And it does all sorts of things to our mind and our body. And it's the one thing that we can, it's the one bodily process that we can actually control if we choose to consciously focus on it. So that would be one of those universal things where I would say to people, just in general, it's really quite helpful just to check in on your breathing. And if you're finding yourself just holding your breath or being really shallow, then just, you know, focus in on that. But beyond that, there are so many techniques out there. There are so many different ways, you know, well-being techniques. And I just think it's about finding the mix of things that works for you, really.
Something you had said earlier, I wanted to, I guess, add my 2 cents onto about some of those things that can cause Christmas to be stressful. You had mentioned like money issues, and I mean, that's
Mm.
something I think a lot of us are going to be dealing with this year. I don't know. It seems like, you know, every year finances get tighter, the kids get older, things cost more money. You know, one of my kids needs orthodontia work. You know, it's just like, oh, are we gonna even have any money for groceries this week? You know,
Mm.
and we had some periods in our with my wife and I where we just had hardly anything. I mean, we were scraping by, and at Christmas, you know, you can get caught up in that. Oh, I got to buy lots of presents for my kids, or they're not going to have a good Christmas. But I wanted to share just a couple of things that we did that really helped us get through those lean times. And I would say the first thing to do is find ways to give, which seems weird when you don't have any or have much, but you can give beyond money. We, you know, we would have the kids maybe write notes to their grandparents, or we would bake Christmas cookies and we'd bake little extras to bring to the neighbors or people in our church who maybe were older or couldn't get out themselves. And so we could bring a little bit of Christmas to them. But having that outward look, we were able to make a lot of fun memories around doing something for other people. And I know it's probably a terrible cliche, but it really did help during those times that things were tight to remember or just to pursue that spirit of giving. It was so fun. We still will bake cookies and always bake extra for our friends and neighbors.
That is so beautiful. And you know, I mean, again, it's a cliche that Christmas has become so consumerist,
Hmm.
but it is a shame, right? It is fun. You know, of course it's fun to have presents and it's fun to
Hmm.
give and receive them and all of that. But I would agree with you. It's the memories, it's the beautiful things that happen in the family. I mean, you know, my favorite thing with it, so actually that Christmas that I wrote that book and did my
Hmm.
experiment, it was just my husband and me. We decided it was a bit too fragile a situation for us to go into a bigger family situation because I didn't know how I would react and I just didn't want to that year. I just wanted to keep it simple. But after Christmas, and some of our relatives came to stay, and you know, the thing I remember the most is playing a ridiculous board game in the run up to New Year, and just it was all about coming up with funny film synopses and that kind of thing. And I just
Hmm.
remember everyone crying with laughter. That was what I remembered the most. Just it's the moments between people, isn't it, which can be just so beautiful.
Yeah, a couple years we actually recorded the kids singing Christmas carols things, and then we just put it online so our relatives who were all over the United States could watch that. So it was like we were Christmas caroling to them on Christmas Eve, and that was fun. That was even before the pandemic made that kind of thing popular. So we were ahead of the curve. And I really have to credit my wife in this because she's so creative to come up with these things. I'm so much of a traditionalist. It's kind of like, I have to do this or it's not really Christmas. And she's like, oh, it's okay. If it
Yeah.
doesn't get done, it's okay. We'll do something else and it's okay. I'm like, all right, all right. But we did that. We recorded things. And we still actually do that. We'll all try to fit on the couch now. We don't fit so well anymore. Everyone's gotten bigger. We'll sing. We'll send out a video to someone. I don't know. We just find ways to be together, and it's when it can happen. It's just wonderful. My kids are getting older now. We're realizing that down the road they'll have families of their own, and things will change, and that's okay, and that's good to see. That's good change. So yeah, there's that. Of course, baking food, watching movies, listening to music. All those things can really help when times are lean to really make Christmas special beyond just the commercial side of things.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And just one thing that was coming to my mind, so all the things you
Hmm.
were talking about tend to be things we do together. And
Hmm.
obviously Christmas is a time where the emphasis is on being together with people, family, friends, etc. And that's lovely. Um, I think when we're facing some slight challenges and we're trying to reclaim our Christmas, it's quite important to have some time by oneself, a bit of reflective time. Um, I wouldn't say this is a thing to just start at Christmas time. I would say start a little bit in advance if you don't do it already. Just a
Hmm.
bit of time by oneself, just to do a bit of grounding, whatever it is. Whether it's a prayer or whether it's a bit of reading or meditation or whatever it is. Just having that time, because otherwise it can just be a flurry of one thing to the next thing, and your brain never has time just to kind of consolidate a little bit, particularly if there are some just some things to work through. So yeah, I think it's worth building that into the schedule if possible as well.
Yeah, there's a few times where I have to say, okay, tonight I am doing nothing, but I'm going to read Christmas book or something. Usually it's like a Christmas carol or reading a Christmas mystery or something. But I'm gonna have a plate of cookies. I'm gonna have some eggnog. I'm gonna play some music. I'm gonna make this like an event, but it's just gonna be me and my book, and unplug for a while.
That sounds like bliss. That really does sound lovely.
It does. It is. And I can kind of do that now as my kids are older. When my boys and my daughter were younger, and they're even before they became teens, it was just like constant going until they were about ready to burst on Christmas morning. Well, and so for that, what I did was I started to read them stories. So we read some Christmas books. I would read some Christmas story to them off and on during the year, just to or during the month, just to get them to sit down and calm down for a few minutes. It's
Yeah,
like, so that was a lot of fun. Just I love to read, and I love reading aloud. So that we came across some great stories that way. Look and see what you can do to bring some cheer into your celebration. Yeah.
absolutely.
I guess I started to already talk about some like Christmas memories and traditions and things. Let's just start with music. Is that an important part of your celebration, and what are some of your favorites?
Oh, you've chosen well there. You really have. So I love music.
Hmm.
I sing. So I remember doing the Once in Royal David City solo when I was at
Mm.
university. Like the whole chapel was packed full of people, and I'm standing there under the
Oh.
archway for about 2 minutes, just waiting to sing it, and all the nerves. But it
Hmm.
went well, and that is just one of the pinnacles of being in a choir to be able to do that. So I loved that. I actually have written some Christmas carols. So when I was a kid, I wrote Christmas carols and had a couple of them performed at school. So lots of memories around music, and actually it's interesting with traditions because I've had to build up some new traditions, obviously because Christmas got a bit spoiled for me in the past. But one of the things we've done in the last couple of years, we've got a little spiral staircase up in this house that we live in, and there's a Christmas tree in the middle of it with all the lights on. And one of the things we love to do on because I find Christmas Eve is the most magical. I do love
Yeah.
Christmas Day, but there is something about Christmas Eve that I just wish I could hold on to and put into a bottle. But anyway, you
Yes.
can't. You just have to enjoy it. But
Yep.
one of the things I love to do is to hold a candle and just sing Once in Royal David City, walking up that staircase with the tree in the middle and all the lights on. And it's just beautiful. So I love songs. I would also say it's not just the traditional songs. So I don't know if you're familiar with Guardians of the Galaxy, which
Hmm.
it was a few films. Well, they did a Christmas special, and my husband and I watched it last Christmas. And there's a song. I don't know what Christmas is, but Christmas time is here. If
Yeah.
people haven't listened to it, I really suggest you just find it on YouTube. I'm still singing it throughout the year. It hasn't stopped. It's just in my head the whole time, and it's just the lyrics are just so much fun. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. That was a fun little film, and love that song. Yeah. Oh, I might have to add that to my playlist. Yeah.
I think so. It gets me dancing every time, and just it's it's
Sure.
it's an alien singing about Christmas and just basically saying, "You humans, you're a bunch of weirdos. What is this?" And I just think it's brilliant.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, my wife and my daughter, they really like the song All I Want for Christmas Is You. Mariah Carey
Yeah.
sings it, and wherever it comes on in the car, they'll crank it up real loud, and I'm being a bit of a Grinch. I'm like, okay, it's too loud. It's a little too loud. But yeah, find a song you can boogie to for sure. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Do you enjoy Christmas movies? Do you have any favorite of those?
Oh, good question. Do you know, I'm not sure. I think that Guardians of the Galaxy special sticks out in my head.
Hmm.
Oh, there was also, I'm not going to remember the title of it. I think it was a British film. It was something like Your Christmas or Mine, or I won't have that
Hmm.
title quite right, but it was a few years ago, and it was just a really beautiful story about a couple of people who landed up basically faffing around and not doing quite what they intended to on Christmas. But it had one of those usual messages about it's all about the people and everything,
Hmm.
but it was just done really beautifully. So I do love it when it's not overly saccharine, but there is just something really, really lovely there. I also love the snowman. I have to
Hmm.
say, the traditional the snowman, although it makes me cry every time, but I
Hmm.
do I do. You'll remember from the book that we had some snow that Christmas, and I built a lovely snow lady with my husband, and she was absolutely beautiful, but she only lasted for about I don't know, maybe 36 hours, and then there was a big thaw, and she was much smaller when we went back. So yeah, it's very evocative of the snowman and just the transitory nature of all of that.
Shaun the Sheep. They had a Christmas special, I think just came out last year, and I really enjoyed that one.
Oh, wonderful. You've given me something to watch out for.
What are very stereotypical, Scottish or English Christmases?
Do you know, it's really interesting actually. The, in Scotland, Christmas was always a bit of a lesser celebration compared to New Year. So Scottish Hogmanay, that's
Hmm.
so Hogmanay was always the big celebration in Scotland. But obviously nowadays, people celebrate Christmas and all the usual things. Actually, I'm just going to ask you this because I don't
Hmm.
know. So in America, I think you have turkey at Thanksgiving.
Hmm.
We have turkey at Christmas. That's like the tradition. Do you have
Hmm.
turkey at Christmas too, or do you have something else?
That is interesting because growing up, we would have turkey on Thanksgiving and on Christmas, and I thought that's normal. And then, you watch
Yeah.
A Christmas Carol and oh, it's a turkey. And when I got married, my wife thought I was weird. Like, why would you have turkey on Christmas? You're supposed to have ham on Christmas. And I said, well, don't you have ham on Easter? And she's like, well, yeah, but so anyway, I don't know what's typical. I have found that I would say most of my guests and people I've talked to and asked have said ham on Christmas, but there's a good number that do turkey. So I guess it depends on where you live.
Well, I can tell you, I do a split of both of those. I do a ham on Christmas Eve and then
Uh-huh.
turkey on Christmas Day. And I always insist on having a few Brussels sprouts, mainly because I like them. My husband, he'll have one on his plate, one lone Brussels sprout sitting on his plate, just because it's Christmas and just because, but he's not really a fan.
Yeah. Well, I should I don't know if you know, but do you know why it seems Brussels sprouts are kind of a traditional Christmas food there? I see it all the time, and do you know why? Or
I do not know why. I just know that I quite like them, but
okay,
they are an acquired taste, and there are a
yeah,
lot of people in Britain who just think they're rubbish. So,
yeah.
yeah.
Well, I had to eat them a few times growing up. My grandma would make them, and I know she wasn't making them right because everyone kind of gags when I describe it. Basically, she just boiled them and plopped them on your plate and said, "Eat it." Do you have a good recipe that makes them taste better, or any secret ingredient?
To be honest, I do just boil them, but
Okay.
but I think with a nice gravy and with everything else, I mean, you don't just eat them by themselves, right? They're
Yeah.
part of the whole smorgasbord of the meal. But
Sure. Yeah.
um, and then it's interesting. I feel a bit disenfranchised from Christmas desserts because I
Hmm.
do not like raisins or sultanas. That to me they are just horrible. But it means I don't like mince pies, and I don't like that flaming Christmas pudding. Like it's all just not for me. So I have to have something chocolatey at the end of Christmas. That's very important to me.
Yeah. There you are. Yeah. Raisins, I'm not huge on. Maybe a raisin oatmeal cookie, but I found that if you replace the raisins with chocolate chips, it tastes even better. So,
Yeah, I'm afraid I have a no raisin policy. Like I will not eat raisins. I don't know why. I don't know why I hate them so much, but it's just a thing.
yeah,
So,
yeah. Well, I mean, it hasn't been until just recently I've even been able to eat a raisin. So maybe my tastes are changing.
yeah.
But yeah, I'm with you there. Anything chocolate, I'm a happy camper. It's funny. I hear sometimes people will say, well, Christmas is really just for kids, and once you get to be an adult, you don't get presents or stockings anymore. And I'm like, what are you talking about? No, I'm gonna be putting my
No, I
stocking
think
out.
absolutely, absolutely. And one thing my husband and I love to do is give each other advent calendars. And
Mm,
the best one I ever got for him, and I mean, he was just so appreciative. You've no idea. It was a jam advent calendar
mm-hmm.
because he loves jam, and he got a little jar every day, a little cute jar with a
Mm.
different flavor, and some of them were like spiced Christmas flavors. Honestly, it was like I was the best wife in the world ever. So he felt good, I felt good, everything was brilliant.
Yeah, this past year, my wife got me an advent calendar of Christmas cookies. There was a local bakery, a friend of ours owns it, and she was doing this as a promotion thing. And so she had ordered it back in August, I think. And it arrived in December. She had completely forgotten about it. And so every day I got a different Christmas designed sugar cookie, like little stockings or a present or, there's different shapes. By the time Christmas came around, though, they were starting to kind of get a little stale. I would open them, but so other than that, maybe go for a 12-day calendar with those. But but anyway, it was good. I enjoyed that. But yeah, I think a jam advent calendar sounds really tasty. I could go for that.
It was really good. I do think spreading it all out across Advent and having some stuff happening, not just all concentrated on Christmas Day. I think that it's
Right.
it's more fun to spread it out.
Oh yeah. Like you said, Christmas Eve is so special. I was just agreeing with you 100% there, but that build up to that to Christmas Eve even it's just so fun. And
Yeah.
yeah. Now, one quick thing here before we wrap up. You had mentioned it in an email. I need to ask about this. That there was one year you and your husband gave each other the same gift. Like, is that a story you can tell? Or
Yeah, it was actually the year that I was writing the book.
uh-huh.
And we made an effort to give each other quite a few presents because, we were by ourselves and we were doing something a bit different. I'm
Yeah.
actually looking at the two presents just over the room right now. So basically, my husband is a massive Lego fan. And this goes back actually to Guardians of the Galaxy. You know Groot. Do you know
Mm-hmm.
Groot, the little dancing? Well, he's a big dancing tree, and
Yeah.
then yeah, and then he's a little dancing tree. Well, there was a Lego Groot that year, and we both decided to buy it for each other. And I just will never forget because he opened his first, and he was very po-faced about it, and he just said, "Oh, that's lovely, that's lovely." And then about 2 seconds later, I opened a very similar parcel and was like, "Uh-oh." It was lovely that we both had the same idea. And we actually just sat there a couple of days later, just each building our Groot next to each other at the same time. So it was great fun.
That's awesome. That's really fun. Yeah, I have to imagine he was like, "Oh, did I open the wrong gift here?" Like,
Yeah, it was one of those unplanned comedy moments, which we always enjoy.
yeah, I love it. I love it. Well, Alexandra, thank you so much for just giving me your time today and talking about with us about these things and sharing a few good laughs along the way. Now, I know you have a lot of resources and things that might help people out. You want to go ahead and tell us about those and where we can find them?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm obviously passionate about Christmas and I'm really passionate about helping people, who've got different issues with it. So you can pop along to my website. We'll be able to pop a link in the comments, I'm sure. But it's damselnotindistress.co.uk, and there's a tab about Christmas, and you'll just be able to click on that. And just I've got various free courses and resources and things to help you, and other stuff I can share as well. So do come along. You can also find me on Instagram and Facebook. I'd love it if you drop me a line, and yeah, I'd love to connect and help you out.
Yeah, and again, her book, Reclaiming Christmas, is on sale. It has an absolutely delightful cover on the front. It's a book I like to decorate with Christmas books too. So, having it out during the holidays is it's just a happy little picture on the cover. Might bring you a smile. What are your future plans beyond this, or are you haven't thought that far ahead yet?
Do you mean for Christmas?
Oh, well, for Christmas or for your career, what do you have you're looking forward to?
So I'm building up Damsel Not in Distress, and it's a beautiful journey actually. Just building up a new enterprise that's all my own, and I can be creative about it. So yeah, I've got lots of irons in the fire on that at the minute. I'm also actually writing a second book, which is going to be it's not another Christmas book, but more broadly about I don't know what the title is yet, but it's all going to be about how you sing after a storm. So, whatever the life storm one's been through, how do you thrive and sing after it rather than just being, a bit cowed by it all. So I'm in the middle of writing that at the minute. So yeah, that'll be available soon.
Music is a powerful tool. I love listening. I'm not the world's greatest singer, but I'll belt out a song I enjoy. So it's there's just
Yeah,
something joyous about it.
you reminded me, I've actually got some songs that I've written that are going to go alongside that second book.
Hmm.
So, which I actually wrote over the last 15 years. And I didn't really know what I was writing them for, but now I know they were expressing different bits of my journey. So it's an exciting project.
Great, great. Well, I can't wait. And keep in touch with those things. I'll have links in the show notes for everyone to if they want to check out your website and get your book. So, Alexandra, thank you for coming on, and I hope you and your family have a Merry Christmas.
You too, Art. Thank you so much for inviting me. It's been a real pleasure.
I want to thank you all again for listening today. Like I said, I really enjoyed my conversation with Alexandra. I hope that she was able to give you some tools to use if you too want to try to reclaim Christmas and rediscover the joy that can be there. I will leave her contact and book information, website info in the comments. It was a good book, and I found some very helpful tips in that book, and just with some of the things that I was going through. So I do recommend that book to you if that's a topic you'd like to read further on. And I'll make sure to leave the link to her book in the show notes. I will be on again probably in 2 weeks. I think come October, I might start doing weekly episodes. I'm not sure yet. I want to be very careful about not overcommitting this year. As you know, I've had kind of a rough year health-wise, and I'm wanting to make sure I'm taking care of myself. I've got several Christmas stories I'm looking forward to reading to you. We might have some old guests back on, and some new friends will be here as well. And I'm looking forward to what this Christmas 2024 will bring for us this year. So with that, as always, you can check out the show notes for ways to help support the podcast if you are able to do it financially, or just by sharing it on your social media. Really helps a lot to get the word out. Every year I get more and more listeners, and it's been exciting to see this podcast growing, and that's all to you folks. So thank you so much. And so with that, let us remember to honor Christmas in our heart and try to keep it all the year. Have a very Merry Christmas.